Hello and welcome to EDA Reports. My name is Jerry Gordon. I'm the president of the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. We have a spectacular show today. Very honored, and I know that's a word that gets overused, but it truly applies to this. We have a discussion with two people who have served Fairfax County and helped to make Fairfax County what it is today. Two gentlemen who served on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors at various periods of time over the 50-year history that mirrors that of the Economic Development Authority. We have with us today Joe Alexander, who represented the Lee District from 1964 to 1996, is that right?
That's right.
A very long tenure as a supervisor, and Tom Davis, who not only was the Mason District representative for many years, but also chaired the board and then went on to represent part of Fairfax County and its 10th district in the United States Congress. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for being here. Joe, 50-year period, when the EDA was first formed by state code in 1964, you were on the Board of Supervisors. What was the board like in those days?
It was a congenial board, and but the most interesting thing is throughout the entire, early part of the years, we all knew that the Fairfax County was a bedroom community. And we also had a feeling that it was going to progress, and we wanted to make it an economic stable community, and that's why the EDA legislation was put together and why it was adopted and why we're here today, because it's done such a great job in getting the economic development for Fairfax County tax base rather than just residential.
In 1964, the county was largely agricultural and, as you said, a bedroom community. Did the board have a vision for what you wanted it to become that was shared by everyone?
Well, it wasn't shared by everyone. People don't like change, and of course, changes were coming not quickly, but they were coming on a steady stream. Believe it or not, people, viewing today, the Shirley Highway was just being built in those days. There may not be too many people around here that remember that. And when the Shirley Highway 95 came all the way out, it opened up Springfield, it opened up Annandale, it opened up a lot of areas. And we did feel that we needed to develop the county much better. And I feel, very, very pleased that we were able to do what we did do.
You mentioned Springfield, and that was part of the district you represented, but there were only 9 districts in those days, or 8 districts and a chairman.
That's right, 8 districts and chairman. Then we changed to the county executive form of government, and the county, and we had 10 districts and a chair elected at large, and that made a big change as far as politics is concerned, to some extent, because we had chairman that ran through the entire county, and each board member of the 10 districts ran in their own district, which made it a little easier for somebody to run for elected office at that point. But it was still a cohesive group, except for maybe 1 or 2, and Tom and I can talk about that if you want to later on in the program here.
With that many people and everything being politically charged, I suppose you're always going to have an outlier or two on some issues. But the board was generally cohesive on the critical matters, things like economic growth.
Economic growth, I would say metro just to a great extent, and I think the transportation to some extent. So the board was pretty much involved together. We didn't have too many dissenters, if you will, from that kind of a feeling and the planning that was going on.
You always recognized that Springfield could be a transportation hub for a lot of different modes of transportation, and that's taken place. What led you to that conclusion?
Well, what really led me to that conclusion, believe it or not, was when we were planning the metro system. I felt that we could put metro out. In those days, Springfield Mall was a major mall, and it was at the intersection of 95. And a lot of the areas from south and from north, and we felt that if we put the metro station right there at that intersection, it would become a major transportation artery. And today it is, and it's becoming even more so as we develop that area at this point.
And it's changing the sort of nature of the Springfield area. It's
Yes.
becoming more business oriented.
More business oriented, and the Springfield Mall itself is being redone. There are going to be more offices. And the other part is that the office market for defense contractors and those kinds of, they call them Beltway bandits, was really a good market in those days and still is. And that has helped tremendously to build up the base.
Thank you. So, Tom, you became a board member representing the Mason District. And it may have been called something other
No,
than
it was
that.
Mason District,
Yeah, still
1979.
Mason.
I was I think 29 years old, got elected to the county board.
And how was the board different from what Joe's described at that point?
Well, it was a pretty congenial board. I mean, by and large, you fought over some growth issues and you fought over the budget, who'd get what in what districts. We always liked to bring it back to the districts that we represented. But we'd go out to dinner late at night. We could talk and work things out. We were partisan about 1 month out of every 4 years. The partisanship really went aside once you came on the board because the issues really weren't partisan in their nature.
So after 10 years on the board, you decided, or was it 8 years?
It was actually 12 years I ran
12
for.
years,
12
okay.
years. Decided to run for chairman of the board.
Right. But what prompted you to do that?
Well, the county was going in a bad direction, in my opinion. Joe was part of it. The county had rebelled in 1987 and had defeated Jack Harity, who had been the champion for Building 66 inside the Beltway. He had been the champion of transportation improvements. He had been the champion for growth, and people got tired of growth. Jack had a couple other issues on his zoning. He got a misdemeanor for voting on, he voted no, but on a zoning where he had a pecuniary interest. And things were just piling up, an anti-growth sentiment built. And so the board, the board decided to go, the voters went a different direction in 1987. I survived that. 3 Republicans lost their seats that year. Joe, as I recall, was unopposed, I think, and staying pretty low.
The only time.
And I was basically, so I had a pretty free pass. We tended to our districts pretty well. But the board came in and started to do some things that, frankly, I felt and Joe felt were just chasing business away. The main job of a board chairman and the board is basically to attract capital to the area, to build a tax base. Then you can fund your schools, you can do human services, you get local charities, you have employment for your kids. If you don't have a tax base, though, all of these other things become a real strain. And what had happened is we had people leaving the county. We had a bad rap with the business community. This county was getting ready to explode, and we needed to attract business. With the Pentagon growth, government contracting growth going in, the internet was in its infancy. It was time for the county to open up, and I just felt we were going in the wrong direction. And so I ran for board chair against a lady, the incumbent, who had won overwhelmingly 4 years before, and I carried 119 of 120 precincts. So I think the voters kind of changed their mind on the growth issue because a recession had hit, and they started to, their whole attitude changed.
Well, it was also a time of tremendous growth, so the pressures on the budget were even greater than they had been 4 years
Well,
previous.
that's what happens when you do no growth, is the budget pressures. You go to homeowners in terms of taxes. We transitioned from a bedroom community where people commuted to work in Washington to having our own tax base. At Tyson's, out here at Fair Lakes, the Child's Tract, Springfield, and a number of other areas over time. And as visionaries, as people like Joe on the board who saw these opportunities. But these were not easy fights because the neighborhoods around that had moved out here to be away from the city, not to be near this density. But we saw the opportunities, and we built the metro system, and now we've got rail system going out the corridor, and all of that, I think, was when we kind of reversed course. And with the county zigzagged, as a lot of counties do, going from no growth to growth and back again. But I think after my win, which was so decisive, I don't think we've had any boards have gone back that.
No, I don't think so. I think it's going forward since that point.
Yeah, I think they recognized, look, we're going to have a tax base. We need to attract business, not chase it away. That's the key. And now, what our income's second highest in the country for any major county. A lot of businesses are attracted, a lot of employment opportunities for young people, universities trying to get campuses established here. This is a place people want to be, and we've got a lot of growth.
So given what it is today and the promise for additional growth in the future, Does this suit your vision in the 60s and in the 70s, 80s? Is this what you guys saw?
Well, we didn't see it going this much, to tell you the truth, but we did see it moving out west, and that what Tom was saying, out the corridor, the Dulles corridor as well. But frankly, it's managing the growth is the most important part, the planning, the facilities, making sure that there is a tax base that you can provide, transportation and education for everybody. So I don't think we really saw the density that is coming at the present time, but we did see the fact that it was going to grow. And the idea was to manage that properly.
I don't think we saw at the time how the population would change and become as diverse as it has and as talented as it has. We're attracting talent from all over the planet. Is coming here to Fairfax to work for some of the highest powered firms in the world. Dulles Airport has been a real help. We've been able to take advantage of that out the Dulles corridor. But I mean, we knew it was going to grow. We wanted to plan for that growth in appropriate corridors to preserve large tracts of large residential lands, like in the Clifton area with the Occoquan downzoning. But I don't think any of us foresaw the success that we would have in terms of building that tax base and attracting worldwide talent to come here to the county, the success that we've had.
So sitting here in Fairfax County today, thinking about future growth, what are we missing? What assets do we need to add to ensure that our future growth is sound? Well,
the one thing, we don't lack it, but we don't have what the Silicon Valley is. I hate to compare us to Silicon Valley, but actually our unemployment rate is lower. The university system here can continue to be strengthened and attract academic talent and do more research and development and the like. If you look at the Silicon Valley, they have labs, government labs, Livermore, Sandia, Stanford, and Berkeley laboratories. And you're getting a lot of spin-offs from that have helped the community. We can continue to do more of that. We can take advantage of Dulles Airport, which is still underutilized today, I think because the employment costs are so high. But that will come back. But we are, I think, doing a good job of positioning ourselves for what's to come.
I would add that transportation facilities are another important issue, and they're the costly kind of issue that localities have a hard, difficult time to meet. The state responsibility is that, and of course last year we were able to get more state money for transportation. But with the present federal gridlock at the present time and the gas tax going out of style, at least by the end of this, by the 11th of August, there'll be no federal money available at all for transportation. So the local government's responsibility in trying to meet that is a real critical issue. And then the question is, where do you get the funds? And then, but the answer is with a good economic base by large companies coming in, as Tom has said, and the development itself. But you have to manage that pretty well.
Yeah. Joe makes a really good point. I mean, in the past, we were able to utilize federal grants and the like. That money is not only dried up, Congress is basically dysfunctional on that. The county was the most proactive county in the state, issuing its own road bonds, getting permission from the state to do that. We said, if you're not going to do it, we'll do it ourselves. There was a lot of resistance to that, saying, well, this is a state responsibility. But the reality is we weren't getting $1 back for every dollar we sent to Richmond. Right. We were just better off doing it ourselves. And so you have the Fairfax County Parkway and some of these other improvements that we did on our own. The county initiated that. But the federal gridlock is just killing us because continuing resolutions, sequesters, these kind of things really hurt the tax base here and the inability of Congress to get a transportation plan in effect. I mean, even if they get one, Joe, it's just going to patch it together. It's not going to be the kind of flow we need.
It's true. It's not going to be planned ahead of time. It's just using the same monies and the same percentages that you've had for the past 5 or 6 years. So it doesn't even take inflation.
Right.
And again, we are more dependent than other areas because we have more to gain here, and we have more issues that we need to solve. One of the things that Tom mentioned was that the referendum. We had a number of transportation votes, and of course the Parkway was one of them. Without Fairfax County doing that, Fairfax County floated the bonds for the toll road to Dulles. Remember?
I do.
The state was unwilling to do that. But we said, hey, we'll do it because it's important. Where would we be today if we didn't have the toll road out rested in that area? So we have to think about that as part of the future.
And Judge, just to add, if you put my congressional hat on, Woodrow Wilson Bridge was an earmark that I got in the House and John Warner got in the Senate. Widening of 123, 66, these kind of things didn't just happen.
Right.
But nowadays, with no money in Congress gridlock, they've done away with earmarks per se. We're just not getting any help across the river. We're having to do it ourselves, and building a tax base is the only way to do it.
Fairfax County is losing 2 of its 3 congressional representatives to retirement. So how is that going to impact us? I mean, it's already dysfunctional.
Well, they're two senior appropriators.
Yeah.
The difficulty is that Jim Moran and Frank Wolf are senior appropriators, and a lot of the stuff they've done for this county, the average voter doesn't even realize.
Right.
But it's gonna, we're hurting at this point. We may not have anybody on the Appropriations Committee from Virginia in the House or Senate going into the next Congress, and that can hurt you in terms of how formulas are how the money is dealt out, those kind of issues. So it's a loss. But we lost John Warner, and the seniority and the things that he brought with that, and we've recovered. They lost me, and they've recovered. I don't think anybody missed me. But it's the kind of things. No, I mean, but we move on. We have talented people coming up underneath, and it takes time to build up. We have some very talented people, coming up underneath both of them, and time goes on. The problem isn't as much the people now; it's the dysfunction of Congress as an entity. And we could have a long discussion on why it's the way it is, but they're just not getting anything done, including passing their budgets on time.
A good example of how people work together. Frank Wolf, Republican, and with the Democrats, with Jim Moran and others, worked very closely for this region to get funds for transportation and other areas. And there may be a political difference, but there was no partisan bickering here.
None.
And Northern Virginia, really benefited greatly by that.
Well, closing the Lorton prison, getting that land into the county, I carried the bill, but I had an ally with Chuck Robb, a Democrat in the Senate, and Jim Moran. And so you can't pass anything on your own these days. You need both parties, even when it's a one-party Congress. And the one thing we've had is the delegation here has always worked very close together. I think that will continue after this, but we're missing some. We're going to miss. These are talented people that are retiring in Wolf and Moran.
You mentioned Lorton. In my sense is that in the southeastern quadrant of Fairfax County, everything from east of 95 and Springfield south, 3 things have happened that have changed the face of that area. One is your effectiveness in getting Lorton Penitentiary removed and the county taking control of that property, and all the things that have happened around it. BRAC, the Base Realignment and Closure Commission decisions of a few years ago, put 16,000 more people on Fort Belvoir, and then companies want to be around it. And then the transportation hub at Springfield. That's changed the whole nature of that southeastern quadrant of the county. Can that become an economic driver now, Joe? You represented them.
It can become an economic driver, but transportation facilities are still a major issue there. Getting people from the Springfield Franconia Metro Station to the facilities and also to the hospital, there isn't any way to get there except by feeder bus at this point. So there's no other way. Route 1 on to Fort Belvoir, trying to put some sort of a transportation facility in the Route 1 corridor would be terribly, terribly expensive. So there's a plan to take a look at this with various options now to see what we can do to feed that area other than with the automobiles. So those are issues that could be somewhat hurt the ability to make that area an economic development area. But I think that we can handle it if we move ahead with some of these plans.
But Joe, we did get commuter rail down that, which,
Yes,
has helped a little bit as well.
Yeah, VRE is always, but VRE is taxed. They need to have more equipment and more ability to run on the CSX right away, and that's coming eventually because we have some state money coming for that. So there are areas there that are positive, but we have to make sure that we have to look at them all.
But Joe's point is, look, you've got to invest in infrastructure to make this stuff happen. And in the past, the federal government was a partner of the county in doing that, and they're just not a partner anymore.
No.
They're just absent. Thank goodness the last legislature and Governor McDonald put a transportation package together at the state. It was modest, but it was significant compared to where we were, and difficult to pass because the chairman of the Transportation Committee gets knocked off in a primary for supporting transportation improvements right here in Northern Virginia. The voters get schizophrenic about this too. But you got to have that infrastructure to be able to do the other things. And I guess the point is that back in the 80s, we saw the need to put infrastructure in place. These were not easy fights, but we put them in place and were able to take advantage of that. Had we not done this, we would have been a much different county.
And I would say that looking at Tyson's, being able to ask developers to contribute to some of the transportation needs is something that is in the plans and something that has to be worked on very hard to make sure that we get those results. And one other thing, talking about the federal government being a partner, without the $900 million federal grant, Silver Line would not be opening the next month, without any question.
So
let's talk about the new Tyson's Corner and the Silver Line. What's your impression of how that's going to drive growth?
Just the access there is vastly improved for the employment centers that are around that. I think it makes it more attractive for employers to locate there. Eventually, it's going to have obviously an effect on rents. So I think it has already. But there's no question that will drive more development around that area, more quality development. Companies will want to be there. The government can move out there because it's now on a rail line, so you could actually put agencies in there. So I think it's a very, very positive thing for the county. And out that whole Dulles corridor. We talk about this being rail to Dulles, and as you know, on the Airports Authority, I've chaired that committee to bring it out that corridor. Phase 2 is funded basically by the toll users. Right. You have some other components to it, but basically financed by the tolls. But bringing that into Loudoun County, I think will change the face of that corridor too and offer some great opportunities for development if we do it right.
I have a thought on another subject, if I might, Jerry, and it's something that the EDA may be interested in. You know, we have a tract of land called the GSA warehouse in Springfield, and that's one of the sites that we've submitted in Fairfax County for the FBI building. It's ideally located on 95, right next to the Franconia Springfield Metro Station. Whatever the EDA can do to work with, and we're losing that seniority in Congress that we could really use to do that, would be a tremendous, tremendous help to Fairfax County in that area, without any question.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That site is prime real estate in a great location, and the warehouse that's on it now is dilapidated. It leaks like a sieve, and it really needs to go away. On the other hand, it is the perfect site for the FBI. It satisfies all their stated requirements.
And the economic development that would bring, as well as, would be tremendous.
It would be.
But it's a good deal for the government. I mean, I think when you look at your employers, they're there.
Yeah.
The difficulty we have is we're losing a couple of key appropriators that could play a role in it.
Yeah.
So we also have lost from Virginia the speaker, and that may have it will certainly have an impact on Virginia.
Speaker to be anyway. He was the majority leader.
To be.
Majority leader.
No, that's going to have. Look, we're losing 3 very senior people from the delegation, and we have a very junior delegation now. We have nobody on the Appropriations Committee, nobody on Ways and Means. Although Senator Warner has now gone on the Finance Committee in the Senate in terms of writing the tax laws. These are 2 very critical committees that a state like ours ought to have representation on. So I don't know if we'll have an appropriator in the next Congress, if one of our members will step forward, or if they can get put on these committees, because they don't view this is a Virginia seat, it's a mid-Atlantic seat.
Right. We've now covered a lot of the assets that are important to Fairfax County as we attract, retain, and grow new businesses. What about education? We mentioned George Mason University. K through 12 system is strong.
It's strong, but we got to continue to work at it because we have people moving in the county that are not all their parents are even literate, and so educating them takes a little more effort sometimes than it does for our kids. Some of them could read or write before they go to kindergarten.
Right.
And having that strong education system is important for being a magnet to continue to get business to locate here, and educating these kids so when they come out, they'll be qualified for the kinds of jobs we're attracting here as well.
That's right. Also, we hear from businesses all the time that not only do they want their children in great schools, but if you are going to attract the best workforce from around the world, they want their kids in the best schools.
Exactly.
So it becomes critical. Fairfax County is fortunate to have all of their high schools on the top lists every time those lists
Well, we
come
have
out.
it today, but that doesn't mean we'll have it tomorrow. The thing is, you can't take these things for granted. You know, General Motors is not the same General Motors it used to be. You can't do the same old, same old. You have to constantly reinvent yourself. You have to constantly innovate to stay at the top where we are, and we can't lose sight of that. I think had we rested on our laurels back in the 80s, we wouldn't have been where we were, constantly innovating and making the kind of changes and staying ahead of the curve. We're in a good place today, though. The leadership, I think, has continued to be solid in the school system and on the county board. But we have to work at that every day. You can't take it for granted. It's a competitive world.
I think you've both pointed out, and this is clearly the case, that these things don't happen just by themselves, that it takes planning, takes leadership, and you two have contributed to that, literally making Fairfax County what it is today. So assume for just 1 minute that you're still on the Board of Supervisors and you need to have a vision for the future of the county. Just very briefly, what would that vision be?
Well, Jerry, I think, look, I said before, at the education, particularly at the higher levels, it's just going to be very, very critical. Development of that airport is going to be very, very critical. But we want to continue to be an employment base to attract quality companies from around the world. You know, we're not a manufacturing center, we're an intellectual center. And you have DARPA nearby, you have National Science Foundation, but we need to continue, you know, with our local universities and the like to build up academia and those opportunities and the spin-offs that you get. And I think if we do that, we'll continue to be competitive. This is a global economy today. We are not competing with Richmond or Washington. We're competing with Hong Kong and Singapore, Paris, London, and these places as well.
I would agree with that and go a little bit further, but we really have to pay attention to our local educational system and put some money in for the teachers' salaries and keep up the quality, because that's a real key issue, especially in this cosmopolitan area that we have in Fairfax County. As Tom says, we're getting people, we're competing all around the world, and we're getting people from all around the world here.
Well, I wish we had time to keep talking more about the 50 years and your service, both of your individual service on the board, and to the community in a whole variety of ways. But thank you very much for being here today, and thank you for everything you've done for Fairfax
Jerry,
County.
thanks for remembering us.
Yeah, we appreciate that. 50 years is a long time.
Exactly.
And thank you for joining us today on EDA Reports. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see the scroll of our website, so you can look on the website and find additional information about the Economic Development Authority, about the business community, and all the other assets in Fairfax County. Thank you.